A lot of it is this sort of typical traditional life trajectory. So I'm supposed to go to school for this certain thing. And then this is also majorly cultural too. So I'm Arab American, was born in the States. And so there's this expectation of you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, or that's it, you're disowned. And that happens in a lot of cultures. And even not in sort of minority cultures, we see certain expectations in terms of what you're supposed to do with your life. Then you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have children, you're supposed to pick a career and just stay on that path. And that's something a lot of people wrestle with. What I think you're seeing this too, probably, is people are fighting a little bit again. They're rebelling a little bit against that because they're realizing I can do my own thing, particularly with career stuff and entrepreneurship. And there's so much conversation around that. The other side of that coin is a lot of people feel that pressure, like I'm supposed to quit my 9 to 5. I'm supposed to do my own thing. I'm supposed to be this like badass, like can do it all, majorly successful, 7-figure, like blah, blah, blah. And you feel so unaccomplished and so unworthy if you're not meeting that, when not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's supposed to be an entrepreneur. It takes so many different kinds of people to make our societies function the way that we need to function. And that's another case where you're abandoning yourself, whichever path you feel like you're pressured to go down.
Yeah, I think that that's so important to hear too, especially because of the massive rise in popularity for entrepreneurship over the last decade, right? Like, there is this sort of view that like my only options are to be an entirely 100% traditional person or an entirely independent millionaire. Right? Like those are like the only two ways
like if
to
I'm
go.
not Elon Musk, I have failed.
Right. And you see it in the way that people talk too. They're like, well, they say we can't all be Elon Musk, as though anyone can be Elon Musk. Like Elon Musk is the richest person on the planet right now, I think.
I think so. I think he's going to be the first trillionaire ever.
Right. He's also, I'm pretty sure he said he has autism. And, his marriages have been tumultuous, and he spent most of his early years sleeping on the floor of his office. Like, I don't think people really understand what they're saying when they say these ideals. And I think maybe that's part of it, is not having the full story, only seeing these like highlights and these clips. And obviously social media plays into it if we want to go on that tangent. But there's so much in there of just like, sometimes I almost feel like it's just like a bit of naivete at times, right? But it's also a bit of like being preyed upon. I think a lot of our emotions are being preyed upon by marketers and companies in different places that are trying to get us to buy something or like join an MLM program, right? Like a multi-level marketing program. And it's just like it was kind of upsetting to sort of work with folks and see that they're not in a great place mentally due to all the things you're mentioning. And there's an entire industry almost built around like keeping them off the track, like keeping them from getting back to themselves. Have you sort of seen any like common things that people get really distracted by when it comes to this?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. And I also see what you're saying, where it's almost as if, and I don't want to assign any intention to corporations or people or businesses that I don't know personally, but it seems as though they're preying on that vulnerability of people. And there's a lot of, I already forgot what you were asking. Was it about fixation on something? Like what are people
like
fixating
getting
on?
distracted, kind of that I do want to get back to like the walking on eggshells and pieces like that, but there's also this sort of, one of the reasons we get so far away from ourselves is that there's an endless stream of things to distract us, right? And and I'm curious, like, how do you help people stop that cycle of like, I don't know, almost being like ADD in the way that they look at their life?
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. We have come to a point where many people have already probably stopped listening to this podcast. Many people don't have the patience to watch a video on Instagram that's longer than 26 seconds. And so there's this constant state, we're living in this state of what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. We've lost a little bit of patience, I think. And we get so distracted by these things that it's constant novelty and constant stimulation. And that can create a sense of overwhelm within the self where you're constantly trying to anchor yourself in these external things. And if they're changing so rapidly, how are we going to keep up? How am I going to know what's going to fulfill me? How am I going to know what's going to steady me? How am I going to know what is truly the thing or the things that are meant for me if I'm constantly being distracted and fed this information? I think it's going to be so interesting when we look at the next generation and the generation after that, and things like brain scans and how different those are going to look. Because I'm assuming you and I kind of grew up around the same time. We did not grow up with technology in front of us all the time. And this isn't to, you know, burn social media or anything like that. It's so powerful and so wonderful in a lot of ways. But I think that's one of the biggest things that we see, where people are just being fed so much information, so many opinions, so many different perspectives, and we're not meant to process. We cannot process that much information. So it becomes this just distraction where we're living in this space of constant overwhelm, and we forget to look within.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm seeing a lot, is I'm having to help people, even just doing things like value sort activities in session. Like, what are your values? And people struggle to even start those sometimes.